Yeah, I did that last week. I forgot.
No, that was a good lesson. That was a good lesson.
This world is moving rapidly, too fast for a child like me. I know what I must do today. I have to take some time to pray. Onwardly rushing by, but as for me, for God and I, there has to be some time today. I have to take some time to pray. This world's in such a frantic race. I cannot keep this maddening pace. Excuse me while I steal away. I have to take some time to pray. Onward, keep rushing by, but as for me, for God and I, there has to be some time today. I have to take some time to pray. When to God in prayer I go, He tells me things that I must know. I want to hear what God will say, so I must take some time to pray. Onwardly rushing by, but as for me, for God and I, there has to be some time today. I have to take some time to pray. Children need their father's care. They need to know that He is there. And in this rushing world today, we need to take some time to pray. Onward, keep rushing by, but as for me, for God and I, there has to be some time today. I have to take some time to pray.
That's part of that preparation, I think, that we need to have, you know, in terms of anticipating the blessing of the Lord. Take some time to pray. Just as much as we make that list before we go to the grocery store, or making sure we got the car tuned up and gassed and oiled and all the stuff going on like that. Take some time to pray and then have the expectation that God's going to be there to give us the answer. Excuse me. It's all a part of something called wisdom. You know, wisdom. Wisdom that leads to joy. We get kind of busy with life, you know. We kind of got to get consumed with the end result and not the preparation that gets us there. So I think it was a good lesson today, kind of to reflect upon what we're doing here. But wisdom. The definition of wisdom, several things here. It says it's accumulated learning. It's what we learn over a lifetime, if you will. And isn't that true? I mean, when we're kids and young people, we make some really dumb decisions because we think we're smart. We think we know it all, you know? It's when your kids become parents themselves, all of a sudden become much smarter in their eyes, you know? Because they've had accumulated learning of what life is all about. And that continues, you know? Another part of the definition is the ability to discern truth. And how many times do we get burned because we've trusted in something that we thought with our own wisdom was the right thing? or in a person that we found out later on was the wrong person to kind of lead us in our direction. So as again, we get older in life, the ability to discern truth and common sense becomes apparent. So sources of wisdom in your life. In my life, and I've had two particularly good sources of wisdom. One was my mother. None of you really got to know her. You know, the Lord blessed her with a long life. She was 104 years old when she passed away a couple of years ago. And, you know, I can recall as a kid looking back again, as we get wiser, you know, my mom and my dad were kind of funky people. They were old fashioned. They had narrow-minded views and things that, you know, we didn't want to participate in or pay attention to. They were simple folks, you know, they didn't accomplish much in life, not much wealth, not much fame, not much fortune or anything. But, you know, she was established in a firm foundation. Carrie knows. I mean, no, she was fixed in what was right. I had to get older in my life to understand that. But good example, she never shouted, never raised her voice. But if you made a bad decision or you did something wrong, you knew about it because there was a body language there in her facial expressions that told you that, you know what, you're not very wise in your decision here, but go ahead and do what you got to do. You know, you're going to have to learn your own way in your own style and your own time. And I appreciate that now. I wish I could have appreciated it back then, because I would have probably made different decisions that would have avoided me some grief, you know. Except for you. Yes. You're another story for another day. But speaking of her, the other influencer, and we talked about influencers a couple weeks ago. You know, the other influencer in my life along the lines of wisdom was her dad. Totally different than my mom. My mom was quiet, reserved, and didn't talk much unless she had something to say. She would say it. Her dad, however, would never shut up. He talked all the time, on and on and on, and I never really appreciated all the things that he said. I just wanted him to be quiet every once in a while. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree here in Carrie's case. He liked people, right? And he had a lot of wisdom. And as growing up, I didn't really have patience for that. And kind of wish he would have been around. You know, he was a good golfer and always wanted me to be a good golfer too. When he moved down to Arizona and we lived in Southern California, we'd drive over to Phoenix and be there with him for holidays and whatnot. And he'd take me out to the golf course in his neighborhood and was so excited about teaching me how to play good golf. And I didn't care less. And he said, look at, you're in business. Businessmen play golf. And the deals are not in the office. The deals are made on the golf course. And you can't go out on the golf course with the way you play and get any deal done because you're terrible. And I had no patience for that. And I let that opportunity go by. And I sometimes, and he was right, you know, because I got involved in business situations where the deals were made and the relationships were made on the dumb golf course. He was absolutely right. He had wisdom in that regard. And I had no time and opportunity for that. So I kind of let those moments go by. So I think, you know, I look at where wisdom really comes from. And although the Lord puts people in our lives, like my mom and like my father-in-law and others in your lives as well, maybe reflecting upon somebody in your life that kind of has been a pillar for you in being wise. And I challenge you now, while you have opportunities, both of these people are gone in our life. There's no more wisdom we can gain from them anymore other than the memory of what they tried to tell us years ago. But maybe there's people in your life today that the Lord has put in your place that I'm telling you, from somebody that has moved on beyond things in life, that, pay attention to these people that the Lord puts in your way. Because they are wise and they do care about you, and they do try to give you the wisdom that they've learned in their life. But wisdom, comes from God, like all things do. And probably the wisest guy in the scripture was a fellow named Solomon. You remember him, right? And it's interesting, back in First Kings here, it says, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give thee, he says. And Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before you in truth and in righteousness and uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him his great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as is today. This is kind of reflective of my life. Now I look upon my mom and my father-in-law, and I'm thinking, you know what? You gave them great wisdom. I want a part of that somehow. And Solomon goes, says, Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. I am but a little child, and I know not how to go out or come in. See, Solomon was already beginning to get wise to the fact that I can't be successful unless I bring you in my life. That part of that preparation we talked in Sunday school. I can't start out even on a single day without knowing you're going to give me some direction in my life. He says, and thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad, and for who is able to judge this thy so great a people. And it said that the speech, Solomon's asking for wisdom. He says, you put me in this position of leadership. And he says, I can't do this without you giving me guidance in my life. And the Lord's put us in different positions in our lives, that we represent him in some way. And we can't venture out in this life unless we have this wisdom that Solomon's asking for in our life as well. He wants an understanding heart that he may discern between good and bad. Doesn't the world need something like that today? Because there is no fine line anymore between good and bad, and everybody's justification about what's right or wrong in our life. It says, in the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon asked this thing. And God said unto him, because thou had asked this thing and not asked for thyself long life, neither asked riches for thyself, nor asked for the life of thine enemies, but you've asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy words, and lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like this. And there's a bonus, God's saying, you come before me with a sincere, right desire, like discerning the truth, like putting me first in life. And there's a bonus. And he does that to Solomon. He says, I have also given thee that which is not asked for, riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like thee in all thy days. There's a condition that comes with all this wisdom that the Lord can provide. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. So where does wisdom come? It comes from people that the Lord has blessed in different ways in our lives, and that we, I think, have an opportunity and an obligation and an understanding to pay attention to. That we could discern the truth from these people that are in our life, because they're influenced by God. My mom was not baptized in the church, but I can tell you without a doubt that she's in heaven with the Lord, because he blessed her with discernment and the ability to understand between good and bad, and to try to impart upon me as a young kid the best of her ability to follow those ways. My father-in-law was 60 some years old when he got baptized. 62 years old. He gave up his golfing career, and he vowed that when he got baptized, when the Lord touched his heart, that he would not play golf on Sundays anymore. And when he moved down to Phoenix, he was the champion of the golf course every year for the years that he lived there. But he got baptized, and he remembered the vow that he made to the Lord, that if I could get baptized and give my life to you, I will not play golf on Sunday anymore. So you know what the golf guys did? They changed the tournament for Sundays because they knew that Tony was not going to play on Sunday. And that's the only way he lost the tournament, because he would not play golf on Sunday anymore. He made that discernment that, the Lord comes first in my life, and that I will understand the fact that I commit to him, he will commit to me. That's the promise that God gave to Solomon. Solomon asked for wisdom, that he could discern between good and bad. So as he had the responsibility to judge these people, God's people, that he would do it with God's help. And God was so pleased with him and said, yeah, I'll give you a bonus. I'll give you all this other stuff too. You didn't ask for it, but I'm going to give it to you. So what's in the cards for us? If we would come forth to God and ask for his wisdom in all that we do, in the preparations of life that we do every day, what other things are there for us because we put God first in our life? Just like we talked about, we get ramped up for camp, and we're putting all this forth there, and God does bless us with more than we've ever asked for in those situations. Bring that back to every day. And all the duties that we have, responsibilities that we have, and things we got to get done. If we would have the wisdom to put the Lord first in our life, not only will we be able to discern the good or bad of each day that we have in our life, but what other benefits are there, that come along with the fact that we put God first? Most of Proverbs is written by Solomon. It's the evidence of that wisdom that God blessed them with in Proverbs. And you can go through that. And it's a great book. I mean, gee whiz, you can understand it. There's nothing to misinterpret with this thing. It's just what's there. And third chapter of Proverbs, our favorite verse, got a plaque in the office that even talks about this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not upon your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your paths, and he will direct your ways, he says. He goes on to say, be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. Be not wise in your own eyes, it's saying here. Where does wisdom come? We said it comes from the Lord. And, we find out here too that just a little bit before this verse, it says, Solomon says, for the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler unto them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment and preserve the way of his saints. Then shalt thou understand righteousness and judgment and equity, yea, every good path. When wisdom entered into your heart, he says, and knowledge is pleasant unto your soul, discretion shall preserve thee, and understanding shall keep you, to deliver you from the way of evil man. From that man speaketh forward things. So, be not wise in your own heart. The wisdom from the Lord comes and tells us which way to go. And again, that's a building block of life. That wisdom that comes from the Lord. It says it will preserve you, and his understanding will keep you. And we wouldn't be maybe swayed so much by the popular opinions of the day, or these people that are not wise in the way of the Lord. They may be smart. They may be learned individuals. They may be posting stuff on the internet, but it's not with the wisdom of the Lord. And what the Lord is telling us, just be careful. That discernment, that ability to understand the truth only comes from the Lord. And it may be attractive. There's a lot of bells and whistles and rewards that supposedly come, from following others and what their lead might be in life. But the lead that we get from the Lord is the thing that gets us going, trusting in the Lord with all of our heart and leaning not upon our own understanding. That's what we want to get here. And how do you get wisdom? I guess in the Book of Mormon, one of the wisest guys, Solomon may be one of the wisest guys in the Bible, but one of the wisest people in the Book of Mormon, in my opinion, was King Benjamin. He was kind of laying a path for the people behind him. And what are the qualities of life that you need to put in your life to get going and being on the right path? And he just quotes us up a couple things here. He says, in 2nd chapter of Isaiah, he says, I tell you these things that you may learn wisdom, that when you are in the service of your fellow beings, you are only in the service of your God. So he's saying, be humble. This is King Benjamin. This is the dude that was leading the whole thing. This was Solomon over this land some years later, saying, you know what I've learned in my life is that when you're in the service of your fellow beings, he said that you are only in the service of your God. That's wisdom. So no matter where we may go and what we may try to accomplish in our life, that if it doesn't include servicing others in our life, then it doesn't quite meet the mark. And Benjamin goes on to say here a little bit, a couple of chapters later, he says, believe in God, believe that he is. And he created all things both in heaven and in earth. He says, believe that he has all wisdom and power, both in heaven and on earth, and believe that man cannot comprehend all the things which God can comprehend. That's the lesson in humility. No matter how much you can learn, no matter what degrees we accomplish in our education in this life, that we're not going to know as much as God. Flat out, that simple. That again, we need to humble ourselves and understand that wisdom only comes from the Lord, And unfortunately, we find that even Solomon, who had that great start, that had that great foundation from the Lord, that he asked for the right thing. And God blessed him for that ability to discern the truth. And he went on to lead those people, which was his quest. And God blessed him with the benefits of all the stuff, that goodness and fulfillment of life he can. Solomon didn't follow maybe his own words, because he got smarter than God. He didn't follow the words that King Benjamin said, that believe that the Lord has all wisdom and power in life. Not you, not me. No matter how much we accomplish in life, no matter how much success we can come up with, that if we don't maintain that relationship, that it's God's wisdom that drives us in our life, it all falls apart. Because in the 11th chapter of 1 Kings here, it says, and the Lord was very angry with Solomon. And why? It says, because his heart was turned from the Lord, the God of Israel. And it says that he commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. And wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely rend the kingdom from you and will give it to thy servant. So even though he had such a thing going, even though that he had the world, if you will, by the tail, what happens in our lives is the fact that we forget that this wisdom from the Lord is we think that we are smarter. We think that we are greater. We think that, I'm in such a role now that the idea of of success sometimes allows us to think that we're successful because of ourselves. What a dumb thought. We cannot gain anything in this life of ourselves. The scriptures are full of counsel that of our own selves we're nothing. You know, that we got to keep that perspective of the Lord driving our life in all things. The success that we have in life may come from some of the effort we put forth, but it's only because of the effort that the Lord puts behind us to be successful in that we get in that way. You know, in the Book of Mormon in Helaman, we read where Nephites and Lamanites, you know, in the 16th chapter of Helaman, it says they hardened their hearts and they began to depend upon their own wisdom, and they did not believe in the Lord anymore. So we've got to be careful about the success that we enjoy in life, because when we start to think that it's because of us, you know, take Solomon's example, take Lamanites and the Nephites here. They started to depend upon their own wisdom and didn't believe in the Lord anymore. James says here that, what does he say? He says that we need to understand that if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. And he says, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavers is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. So if we lack wisdom, we're supposed to go to God, like Solomon did, and ask for it. And if we're aligned right with him, and our position with the Lord is relevant in the fact that we understand that he can do all things in our life, then you know what? Wisdom comes our way. But it's so easy for us to be smarter than God. You know, it's so easy for us to let, you know, the distractions of the world, as was mentioned today, take us off the path. And we're no longer on God's wisdom anymore. We're on Brother Walt's wisdom. And so many times my own testimony, I can tell you that I failed miserably in life because you know what? I did exactly what Solomon did. I got all puffed up in my own success. You know, and the Lord has his ways of cutting your legs out underneath you. But, you know, with the fact that we have the understanding that we're wallowing now because we made our own decisions and we didn't trust in the Lord with all our heart, that we leaned upon our own understanding and we didn't acknowledge him in our ways and our paths got redirected. But thank the Lord that there's forgiveness, there's compassion, that there's love. Like the prodigal son, we come to ourselves at some point in time, we come back to our Father's wisdom in heaven, that we say, you know what, I made a mistake. And I've got to get back into line here where the Lord's wisdom directs me and not my own anymore. And we find out here that happy is the man. This is Solomon again, maybe reflecting upon his decisions in life. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding, he says. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all things that thou canst desire are not to be compared to her. He's talking about wisdom. He's saying that there is nothing in this life that you can achieve or attain other than the wisdom of the Lord and the direction that he gives you in his life. And happy is the man that finds that wisdom and that gets the understanding of that wisdom, that that's driving my life. God's wisdom is driving my life. That just means I have a low blood sugar. And if I don't hurry up here and get some sugar, I'm going to fall on the floor. So I have this little meter here that tells me that I'm at 62, which is an urgent low. So if you hear this thing beeping, pray that I can finish this and get some sugar quickly. That's wisdom. I've learned the hard way that I don't ignore this thing. because, you know, you have things that happen to you. But getting back on track, it says, wisdom is more precious than rubies, and all the things that you can't desire are not to be compared with that wisdom. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. And wisdom's ways are the ways of pleasantness, and all the paths are peace. Wisdom is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is everyone that retains her. You know, this is from a guy who learned the hard way. He decided that his wisdom was more than the Lord's, and he found out that happiness escaped him because he put his wisdom before the Lord. Happy is the man that finds wisdom, and you get understanding in that. And so there's a writer of some good Christian books called C.S. Lewis. I don't know if you've ever read any stuff. Screwtape Letters is one of them, and there's a whole bunch of them. And they're kind of like easy to read, and they take the gospel of Jesus Christ and they put it in such a way that these characters, you know, are talking to you in a way that can kind of lead you down a different path, that you end up finding, you know, the wisdom of the world taking you away from the wisdom of the Lord. But he says that joy is the serious business of heaven. And what Solomon tells us here, and he found that out the hard way, because when it escaped him, when that joy wasn't with him anymore, that wisdom of the Lord wasn't anymore, he found out, looking in retrospective, that happy is the man that finds wisdom, God's wisdom. And the man that gets understanding that God leads and directs you in your life. That God's in the joy business. God's saying, you know what? Take my wisdom into your life and let that lead and direct you where you got to go. And you're going to be happy. Not that you're not going to have some struggles along the way, but God's in business to help you to be wise in his ways. And the way for joy is in God's way. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not upon your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. And it should be health to thy navel and marrow to your bones, because happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and that man who gets understanding. So, as we prepare for life, as Stephanie put out for us today, the wisdom of the Lord allows us to prepare that way and keep us on track. And there's a testimony of Solomon, who asked the Lord and was given that wisdom. And then when he was successful in life, as we might sometimes be, and we decide to become wiser than the Lord, somehow or another, our paths are redirected and we're wandering somewhere. So it's classic examples. And maybe your own testimony says the same thing. I've been there. I've gone my own way. But thanks to the Lord's mercy and grace, he's kept me back on the path again. Where I'm going to be tomorrow, I don't know. But we hung a shelf yesterday because we depended upon God's wisdom as to where to put that nail and how to measure it in such a way. Something as simple as that, I give God the honor and glory and his wisdom to say, okay, put them there. And we did. And we succeeded. Praise the Lord. So what is there for you in your life? That if you put God first and you depend upon his wisdom, what paths is he going to direct you on? I don't know. It's up to him, but I'll tell you what, you're going to be blessed if you trust in the Lord with all your heart. Okay, sugar. Orange juice.
Orange juice?
Yeah.
Apple juice?
Anything with sugar.
He's gonna pass out.
Yeah, that's something to see.
Yeah.
We don't want to see that.
Thank you. That sounds good. Oh, gee, you're out.
Well, maybe
I'll help kick off our testimony service. I wanted to share some praise today for what the Lord has been doing, and I have to say, when Brother Walt mentioned wisdom, I sort of got on the edge of my seat, because it says wisdom is the principal thing. Get wisdom, seek after it like silver. And so I want that. I want to acquire that understanding. And his definition of wisdom was so great. We get it through the experiences of life, and we should look for those opportunities. Ultimately, it comes from the Lord, but we should look for those opportunities to get that wisdom, those treasures of understanding from God. But our brother also encouraged us to remember that along with that wisdom, we also have to have reliance on the Lord. I never get so much wisdom that I can now function without the Lord in my life. So that always supersedes the wisdom that we can amass, right, in our lives. And interestingly, I woke up last night and couldn't go back to sleep for a little bit, and I was thinking about a mentor, a source of wisdom in my life, and that was Brother Ken Jones. And he used to say this phrase, and the more I think about it, the more wisdom I realize is packed into this phrase. But he would always ask us, are you in the way or in the way? And I thought, initially when he first said that it was kind of a funny play on words, because it's saying the exact same thing twice. But when you start to think about that and realize, wow, you can say something, but you can interpret it more than one way. And, that's how it is in life. And so there's this existence of the possibility that though someone says something, they could mean something else. And though I say with my words, I'm in the way, it could be that I'm not in the way by walking in the path of God, but rather that I've become an obstacle in the path. And I think that's what he meant, is that you're either pursuing the way of God or you're standing in the way of God. And when I'm doing that, I'm not just an obstacle for God, I'm an obstacle for others who are trying to find their way, because I'm either blocking their way or I'm setting a bad example that they would follow someone's actions that are not going to lead them to the Lord. And so, I was pondering that, throughout for a while last night, thinking, wow, that's really something that, and we need to ask ourselves the same question. Am I in the way? And which ways? Solomon, of all people, should not have lost his way. He needed, even with all the wisdom that, to the greatest extent of any person, he needed to ask himself that same question. Am I really in the way? Or have I lost my way? And now I'm in the way, in the wrong way. And these words that I think Brother Walt was reading a little bit from Proverbs 4, it talks about the way, it talks about the path. One of the things it says in the 11th verse, I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in right paths. And so that's, what we have before us as an opportunity. But he says at the end of the chapter, ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. And I think the way we do that is to make sure that, even like Brother Walt did before he hung that shelf, he asked for the Lord's help. Seek God, and that he'll establish you. That will establish you in making sure, as you submit to him, that we are in fact doing what the Lord wants. And so we have a lot to consider. And it shouldn't just be when our favorite subjects come up that we get under the edge of our seats. I think we should be attentive. It's kind of like when you turn on your favorite movie and you want to just get every part of it. Movies go so fast. You've really got to pay attention and get every little piece. We should be that way with church all the time, because that's seeking, hungering for that wisdom that God has to offer us. And so I want to hear every part. I want to gain whatever I can today. And the more I can gain from the words of God and hold on to, the better week I'll have. And one of my favorite verses happens to be in this very same chapter. In the 18th verse, it says, "But the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day." And I think, wow, if I'm living the way God wants me to live, then every day I live is better than the last. That's a great way to live. And so I love that idea. And when I'm in the right way and the right attitude, that's what's possible. But I do want to praise God and maybe kick off some testimony and just say that, the Lord has allowed us to sell our home after an 11-month saga, almost. Get our things here safely. At one point I was, we hired movers, okay, to help us with the heavy lifting, because I knew we had some heavy things, including a piano that needed to be moved from our home to my sister Julie's home. And I just thought, there's no way I'm gonna, on top of working all day, attempt that. And we had, some heavy sleeper couches and things that I just didn't want to lug up and downstairs. And, so we got some movers. And, unfortunately, they did good with the truck, but we had a trailer too. And they packed the trailer. They must have gotten tired by the end of the day, and they started sloppily throwing things in there. And we didn't really kind of realize how bad they were doing, because we were so busy boxing and doing our own thing. And we dropped the piano off, we got back to our house, the movers left, and we realized we've still got a lot of stuff in the garage that's not in the trailer. This is a problem. And so we opened the trailer and realized it's not packed well at all. And we had to unpack it and redo it ourselves. And we got it here, and we had another team here in Colorado of movers. And I was a little concerned, honestly, because one guy shows up, another guy behind him dragging his feet like he had maybe, I don't want to say he was hungover, but he was very sleepy. He didn't sleep a lot last night. Typical 20-year-old probably stayed up too late playing video games, and he was like at best half awake. Third guy missing. He calls and he says, "I'm in Colorado Springs. Where are you guys?" And they're like, "We're not in Colorado Springs." He was in the wrong place. And I'm like, okay, we have 1.5 guys here. I get in the truck to start helping them unload. And as I'm doing that, at one point, there was this headboard, big wooden, solid headboard. I unstrapped it, and I don't know, I didn't realize this could happen, but the truck was kind of parked, on the edge of the curb, so it's sloped, and, gravity works, right? This thing comes crashing down in the middle of my back. The Lord protected me. And I had, I was praying the whole day, "Lord, give me better wisdom than this. Help me, Lord, to have the strength. I've got a long day ahead yet to unpack." And he did. He gave us the strength to do it. So I just praise God. We're here. We've got our things here. And wouldn't you know it, the same week, it was Monday that we were unpacking, for Labor Day. And Thursday, was it Thursday or Friday? I get a call from my old boss. She offers me a job that I get to start in a few weeks. And so I have much to thank God for. And I thank him for watching over us. But I'm excited to hear what he's done in your lives as well. So I want to hear your testimonies.
Couples chats on here.
Okay.
I didn't see them.
I want to thank God today